I'm talking about grief. I hope that's not too heavy for everybody. I tried to make my slides a little bit more, colorful so that it wasn't so sad. But grief has played a very important role in my life, and we'll talk about that, and also how that has really guided my leadership journey as well. So, I have a confession to make to you guys, and the first confession is that I'm actually not a leader. I don't really consider myself to be a leader. I think I'm more of a doer, and that's because I get a vision, I set goals, I ask questions, I do all those things. I figure out what I need to do, who I need to know, and I just do what I do. And I encourage other people, and all of you guys in the room, to pretty much do the same. If you can pick out something from people that you admire, grab that and become leaders in your own life. What you guys don't know, because we are just meeting each other for the first time, is that even though I've achieved a lot and I'm grateful for those things, I have dealt with a lot of personal traumas in my life, as I said before. But I'm not the only one who goes through things. And the thing about that is that not everyone can talk about that. Not everyone can process those things, and not everyone can actually bring those experiences full circle to what they have experienced. So we'll talk about some of that tonight. As you guys know, the theme of this year's conference is Caring on My Mind, and that goes right into the national themes, which you all should know as well. Michelle set them, they're in your packets, all the things. So, caring for self, caring for circles, and caring for your community. The latter two, you cannot be successful at if you do not prioritize the first. So, that is care for self. You have to think about the domino effect that you not prioritizing yourself, not taking your time, not being peaceful, not exercising your right to have peace, how that has a domino effect on everything else that you do in your life. So whether you're a leader or a doer, you got to be honest, open, aware, and definitely self-aware, aware of self. So tonight I'll explain how me accepting my journey of grief and loss, how that acceptance goes into all of those things, and how it also runs parallel to what I do and how I lead. But before that, I'd like to introduce myself just a little bit more. Michelle did a great job, but I wanted to show a couple of videos from my experience in journalism and then my current role in radio. But before I get into those, do we have any reporters or aspiring journalists in the room? Okay, what do you want to do? Okay. Okay, that's awesome. And those two actually will pair well together, so that's nice. Anybody else who wants to go into media? Even if it's not reporting, you can be on the back end. You can be a producer or a videographer. You can do whatever. Anybody else? No? Okay. Well, let me show you guys a couple videos. The first one is about a couple minutes long. And when you are in TV, what you do, you send out reels. And they're basically just, it's a highlight reel of everything that you've done. So if you want to get a job, this is what you do.
Well, one neighbor told me that this home is roughly a century old, so you can only guess the age of the tree that unfortunately fell on top of it. All right, so we actually moved a little bit farther down, even more towards 28th and Vienna. We were able to get to this point. This is where I was talking about earlier, where I saw them going into some homes.
Do we know when court proceedings will begin and when he could potentially stand trial?
So he is back in court for a preliminary hearing on January 14th, and he mentioned that criminal history. He now has a history in 3 different states, Wisconsin, Georgia, and Nevada.
State Senator Lena Taylor bowing out of the race for lieutenant governor. The Milwaukee Democrat announced last night that she was suspending her campaign. Breaking overnight, Milwaukee police are investigating 4 separate shootings that sent 4 people to the hospital, including a teenager.
It's time now for Schlesinger's Saturday Spotlight, where we highlight some of the fun events in our area. Michael, I'm really excited for this because we've got some new ways to keep New Year's resolutions, right?
What's so specific about 3-on-3? Why is that so unique, and why do you love it?
Well, it's a game that we've all played growing up.
We came on the other side of Wisconsin because we hadn't shown this area any love. Now Morgan, she works for Northwestern Mutual, and she's out here with her coworkers holding down the fort. I heard you guys talking about some of your favorites. I'll tell you who my favorite is that I saw when I got so giddy when I walked in there, and they pulled out the poster for me.
for Backstreet Boys.
Oh, yeah. Ski and snowboard season is officially here, and you do not need to go too far from home to hit the slopes. Let's check back in with CBS 58's Emerson Lehman, who needs to get on the slopes. Emerson, what's going on?
I'm gonna work on it, Kim, I promise.
Protesters, they are hitting the streets for a third time tonight. We'll just kind of give you the view that we are seeing at this moment.
Now, the defense, they made a surprising call to call Rittenhouse to the stand this morning. He wasn't expected to testify until later this week, but in tears, Rittenhouse described the moments that he says that he was ambushed.
So that's just a little bit of all the things that you do when you are in news. You could be covering a protest, you could be covering a murder, and then you could be interviewing Ice Cube, you know? It's all over the place. But I know that only one person really raised their hand for journalism, but I will say if you want to get into the industry, go for it. If you want to go to grad school, go for it. It gives you access to your world in different ways, so just think about that, and maybe we can talk about it later. The next video, it'll be a little bit shorter. I'm in radio now. I work at Radio Milwaukee in public radio, so we focus mostly on music, but we also do community stories, and I've just been given the opportunity to do some fill-in hosting, so a little shorter clip on that. Hey everybody, this is Kim Shine. You are listening to Hyphen, where we connect the culture, and I am part of the Hyphen team. If you have not met me before, hello. It is nice to meet you tonight. And that was Nile X Nile with his 2019 single, Trees in Youth. And you guys know on Hyphen, we do play at least two local artists per hour.
If you are a fan of Tink, you will be very happy to know that she is back in the studio. She says she has a special announcement on the way, so if you're a Tink fan, go ahead and check that out.
And once again, that was Maceo with Dance With Me. I am Kim Shine. And if y'all didn't know, or if you forgot, dance music, house music, my favorites, because I really don't care how old I get, I'm going to find a way to move.
I heard some Erykah Badu, I heard some Maxwell, I heard a lot of things going on in that, and I think I like them. Sound pretty good.
So do we have any people who want to do radio? Oh my goodness. Nobody's interested in media. Well, I got you. What's your name? Yeah. Okay, so Alyssa is interested, but nobody else. That's okay. I'm going to try and convince you guys after this, so find me later. But anyways, I do TV and radio, and like Michelle said, I came into ODK in 2008, and I wanted to figure out if I could actually find that email for us, and I did. I didn't know that Michelle was going to be so present, but this is the email, and you guys probably have gotten the same email, but I wanted to point it out. I thought it might be a surprise for you, because I was like, oh, wow, didn't even know I could go that far back in my email, but there we are. And as she mentioned, my book, On the Other Side of Everything, it's definitely something that changed my world last year. I was going through a lot, and I will explain that in just a second, but just wanted to give you a preview of what the book looks like, and I'll tell you more about it as we go on. Now, if you talk about the definition of grief, it's defined by Google as deep sorrow, especially that caused by someone's death. And has anybody experienced grief in this room? Okay, more hands go up. You might agree with me that grief actually is influenced by a spectrum of things. It is age, it could be frequency, the proximity of the person to you, the cause of death, and then post-care of self. And for me, my mom died when I was 11 years old. And she was the first of many, or I should say several, major and traumatic deaths in my life until my late 20s. So it was my mom, it was one of my grandmothers, my godmother, and then one of my really close cousins. As you guys can imagine, each one of those deaths created a deeper void. And honestly, I have to say that it's only been within the last 5 or 6 years or so that I have been able to understand the aftermath of those losses and how those guided my decisions, my relationships, and also my confidence. Some examples for you. When my mom passed away, that meant that I had to go back and live with my dad full time, right? My whole life was in shambles at that moment. When my grandmother passed away, my dad's mom, that meant my dad, who was now a single parent, had one less trusted person to take care of me. I was 11 years old, was growing up, and he was by himself at that time. When my godmother passed away, actually when I was at Grand Valley, when I was an undergrad, that meant that I had one less person to talk to. And I was becoming a woman, I was processing my previous grief, and then she passed away as well. And finally, when my cousin, she was killed in a car crash, for me, that meant that I lost someone who was more like a sister and a best friend. So I say all that not to say that I'm not grateful for the things that I've done or the things that I've experienced, but grief really does make you feel isolated. And I will say that when I would talk to friends and we would talk about our lives and who we were, I would have realized that my life was completely different from theirs. But nobody really knew that, because people would say, oh, she's so nice, she's so positive, that's Kim, we love Kim. But they wouldn't really know that I was 50% above water and like 75% below. Do you know what I mean? You have this persona that you take to class, or you have this persona that you have with your friends and family, but people don't really know how you feel inside. And looking back, what I realized is I became someone who was high functioning with grief. So for me, I would have great days, and then I would be triggered by a TV show. I don't know if you guys have experienced that. If someone passed away or something happens, you see someone walking down the street and you get a memory and you get triggered. I would have that with a song. I'd have a bad day, a good day, a sad day, a great day, and it was just all over the place, you know? And I found that it was easier for me to pour into work or into other circles or into other communities and just really distract myself. And that worked until about 2016. And that was when my cousin passed away. At that time, as Michelle said when she introduced me, I became a producer. And that was when we got the Emmy nomination for the Milwaukee special on gun violence and how that affected families there. So professionally, I was growing, I was focused. I think it was pretty good. But when my cousin passed away, my mental health, my mental wellness got so messed up that my friends and family started to worry about me. So I decided I needed to take a break. I took a break from the industry, I broke my contract early, and I had to focus on myself. And so 3 months later, I was okay. And thankfully, I was able to get another job reporting, and that job led me back to Milwaukee. And you saw some of the clips that I showed. Some of those were from Milwaukee. And everything was good, but that was until the pandemic. And I know that the pandemic affected everybody differently. The world was completely devastated, but professionally, I was growing, right? I was focused, I was distracted. There was so much going on. You had COVID, you had protests, a lot of impactful work for a lot of different people who had a lot of things to say, and a lot of people who were affected in many different ways. It was tough, inspiring, all those things. But my personal life, for a myriad of reasons, once again, was breaking down. But I will say, at that point, it felt a little bit different, because that was last year, believe it or not. And last year, I finally realized what I had not been doing for all this time, and that was properly caring for myself. And I know that you can't really go through all these details in a keynote speech, but you guys can fill in the blanks. And for all of you who raised your hand about grief, you can fill in those blanks with your own experiences. But I wasn't caring for myself. I realized that other people would say things like, oh, speak up, Kim, speak out. You gotta loosen up. You gotta be grateful for the things. You gotta celebrate those lives that were lost. It's easier said than done, right? But eventually, I did kind of understand where they were going, the good intentions that they had, and that I really wasn't accepting that grief. I was not being patient with myself. I wasn't accepting grace. I wasn't being accountable for my consistent bouts of sadness and negativity. I had no idea that I had as much of that as I did the positive Kim, the happy Kim. I had no idea that that is what people were seeing. I wanted peace, but I wasn't allowing myself to actually get that. And also, for all of you who have experienced grief, it's about trust too. You don't really know if it's possible to accept grief and then also move forward in life. Those two things don't really seem to come together until they do. So last year, I was in TV, and I decided I needed to take another break, just from the professional world, just in general. I needed some time to myself, so I did. I took a few months off. I took a summer. I traveled. I went to St. Kitts. I did a whole bunch of things, like life was good, okay? I was on beaches, I was doing great things. I also did some therapy, and I deepened and I expanded my circles, and I really did get a chance to clear my head. But I had no plan at all. I was just like, I'm just gonna leave, whatever happens, happens, and we'll see what goes on from there. And at that time, it was actually the best decision for me. So, I missed a couple slides, y'all. But I'm still in media at this point. As you know, I'm in radio right now. So I'm still telling stories, and I'm still learning and creating platforms to uplift voices in my community. And some of these are here. Like the picture up there, we do something called After Dark for the Culture. And maybe you guys can do this on your campuses, but we bring storytelling with cultural experiences, and we bring people on stage. They have 5 minutes to talk about whatever they want about their culture. So pretty popular event. And you can theme it too. So maybe that's an idea for something that you can take back on your campus. Also, back to my book. I published my book, and that was such a huge thing for me because when I was dealing with my grief, the way that I would do it, I would just write everything out. I would talk about it, but I would write most of it out. And I had friends who had published books before, and I was like, maybe I will, maybe I won't. But I really wanted to keep everything inside. You know, I was really scared to let people see that part of me. But I did, and I kid you not, whole world changed. My relationship with my dad, he's great, but our relationship got stronger, my friendships changed, and like I said, I left the industry, published this book, and then I got into radio. Didn't even know this was gonna happen, but that's what happens when you take care of yourself and when you release, you know? Because you don't know what's on the other side of everything that you're experiencing. All right, so the reason why I'm up here is to talk about what grief has taught me about life and leadership. Leaders, if you agree with me, they know that they're part of a larger ecosystem and that every action has an equal or opposite reaction. They create opportunities for others to get inspired and to ascend. They know that in order to guide anyone else, they must first know themselves, know their impact, and know how they live as well. Leaders want to grow, and therefore, they're always students. And I see a lot of students in this room. I was not expecting as many students, but I see a lot of students in this room, and that's great. I haven't been a student in a long time, so you guys are making me feel really old. But leaders also understand that in order to see good in their communities, they have to contribute good as well, and they share their knowledge to help others find their purpose. Now, earlier, I did tell you guys that I'm more of a doer than a leader, but I do have a couple of things to share. And I know you guys have pens and papers, so maybe you want to write these down, maybe you don't. But here are some key things that, for me, when processing my grief, I found that they matched with leadership too. We'll go through some of these. We'll go through all of these. The first one for me was to listen. You guys have probably heard from your parents or anybody who you know that the wisest person in the room knows that they do not know everything. So whether you are a student, head of a company, whatever you're going to do, the more you listen, the more you will learn. And hopefully you'll be able to use this knowledge to problem solve, because that's a big part of the world. When you guys leave college, you're going to encounter nothing but bills and problems, okay? Sometimes happy people, but a lot of bills and a lot of problems. And you got to know how to get past that. So listen, and you'll be able to navigate your world, and then hopefully pass on that knowledge as well. The second one is acceptance and accountability. You cannot grow without these two. So strong people know that they have to acknowledge and accept what cannot be changed. And then they find ways to get around whatever is their issue. And with loss, the sooner that you accept the fact that you have lost someone, the sooner you can find ways to get through that as well. And as leaders, we're also liable to ourselves and to others. So we have to be self-aware and responsible for our thoughts, because our emotions and everything, like I said earlier, they all have a domino effect. And you probably may not even know that this decision caused somebody else to feel pain or maybe change the path they were going to go on. So you have to be really, really conscious of what you do and how you lead. The third is responding and reacting. Does anybody know the difference between the two of those? Okay, who said yes? I heard a yes. Can anyone tell me the difference? Yeah, I want someone to tell me the difference between responding and reacting. Yeah, go ahead. What's your name?
Michaela.
Go ahead, Michaela. Thank you.
I would say reacting is someone having more of an impulsive emotional response, kind of letting your emotions more self-controllable. You know how to, you kind of know how to like process things accurately, you know, and it's more based off of logic instead of impulse.
Yeah, and so for you, I have a follow-up question for you. So with those two, which one do you think will be best when it comes to leadership and making sure that you're a strong leader in your community?
Definitely responding.
Responding. Thank you. Do you guys agree? Yeah? Okay, get some nods. Thank you. I do appreciate that. That takes off more than what I have to say. I don't have to say much. But actions are intentional. Reactions are impulsive. So mind your emotions and realize, again, that domino effect. The fourth one, stay focused and don't get distracted. I don't know if you guys know, but everything is a distraction in life. Like you are a distraction to yourself. So don't let your attention get pulled away from your goal. Grief as well, it's valid, but it can also be a distraction. If you let yourself stay sad for too long, your mind empties, and you don't even know what you want to do. You don't even have the motivation to do anything. So you got to be mindful of that and drown out the noise. I also want to say that for you guys, y'all might have to sacrifice a few parties, but that's okay. Because like when you have your own company and you're making a lot of money, you really won't care about the parties because you'll be hosting the parties at your house on the lakefront. So to me, that's like a better sacrifice in the long run. The fifth one, make a decision, stick with it, and let it go. With grief, this is really, really important because you'll flip-flop back and forth in trying to get over your sadness. And if you decide that you're either going to go to therapy or you're going to write it out or you're going to get over it, stick with that and work towards whatever future and whatever peace that you want. Also in leadership, whatever information you have at the time and whatever knowledge, use that to make the best decision. And the last one is to take time for yourself. Like I said, I've taken a couple of breaks throughout my career. They have not hurt my career at all. They've actually helped me to become stronger when I returned to the industry. So you guys might encounter systems and managers who don't think that you deserve to take a break, don't think that you've worked hard enough, don't think that breaks should even exist. But make sure that you find time for yourself and that you find advocates who support you and your decision if you do need to take a break. Wrapping up. This year's theme, as we all know, is caring on my mind, so care for self, caring for circles, and caring for community. I realize we have a lot of different people in this room, so my list of 6 could be different from your list of 6, and I encourage you to, I saw some people taking pictures, so thank you for that, but add to your own, add your own to this list, and I really encourage you guys to be intentional and be aware about what you do and how you lead and just how you move, because it really, really does make a difference to the next person. So do those things, because at the end of the day, if you care for yourself, the better that you do that, the more you stay peaceful, your circles will get bigger, your communities will continue to grow, and that will happen whether you are inside of those circles or you are not. So thank you guys very much. There we go.